If you like hockey, the Montreal Canadiens are the team for you. Today on Locked On Canadiens, we will get you through just another 4-game week for your Montreal Canadiens.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, and for making us the number one sports podcast network here at Locked On. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com, place your NFL live bets all season long. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @MaybeIt'sIan. I'm joined by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, it's weird to have a night without Canadiens hockey. But these nights will be few and far between, as we will get into in our weekly forecast, which is now a 4 FOUR cast, given the fact that they play 4 games every week until the heat death of the universe. How are you feeling today, Laura?
Well, I feel like, the NHL schedule makers wanted to be in solidarity with all the people who've had to return to the office for 4 days a week, because now the Habs have to go into the office 4 days a week, just like us. The Habs, they're just like us. So, I'm excited about a packed schedule, because that means there's a lot of chances for the Canadiens to redeem themselves after a loss, right? So, much like last week, it was like a loss and then a win and then a win and then a loss. So I feel like there's a lot more chance for the Canadiens to bank points, obviously, but it is long, and I do worry about their durability.
Yeah, them and everybody else. I think the injuries around the league are up, and I think the only thing we can point to, and the easiest thing we can point to, is the condensed schedule. So look, we'll get you covered with our weekly forecast. We have all 4 games on tap, ready to talk to you guys about those. Frank Saravalli pointed out over the weekend that Phil Danault is on the market in LA. We'll talk about whether or not a reunion with the Canadiens makes sense. And then after watching him light up Montreal on Sunday night, we revisit the idea of Brayden Schenn being a trade target for the Montreal Canadiens. But let's start with our weekly forecast. 4 games on the schedule, at home versus Tampa. Then they hit the road in Pittsburgh, in New York on Saturday, and then back home on Sunday against the Edmonton Oilers. Heading into the week, the Canadiens are 15-10-3 for 33 points. They are in 3rd in the Atlantic, which could have been better had they had a better result against the Blues. They would have been in 1st all by themselves, and now they will watch the Tampa Bay Lightning, as you're listening to this last night, play the Toronto Maple Leafs. Power play is clicking 4th in the league on the power play at 25.6%. The PK is bad, 25th in the NHL, 77.5%. Let's start with the game in Tampa, or not in Tampa, against Tampa. It's in Montreal. Tampa comes in 16-10-2 for 34 points, 1st in the Atlantic. Montreal was 2-1 versus Tampa last year, a 5-2 win at Tampa Bay on December 29th. On that trip, that kind of shook the whole balance of the season for the Canadiens in a positive way. A 3-2 win towards the end of January, and then a 5-3 loss the game before the Four Nations tournament that really got the Canadiens. They came back from that and were really good for the rest of the season. Kucherov and Point are hurt. However, they are playing against the Toronto Maple Leafs on Monday, so you have to imagine they'll be in the lineup for the Tampa Bay Lightning against Montreal. That's the second half of a back-to-back for Tampa, so Montreal should be able to should have an easier time against Tampa, although given how they just played against St. Louis, who knows? Kucherov has 34 points in 25 games. Brandon Hagel, 29 and 27. Gensel is 28 and 28. The Leafs are getting Jonas Johansson out of Tampa on Monday, so the Canadiens will most likely get Andrei Vasilevsky, a 9-16, 231 with a shutout. Power play, 24th in the league for Tampa, 15.9%. PK, 86.7, 3rd in the league. 1st in the division could be up for grabs depending on how the game goes against Toronto on Monday. Laura, where are you at on this one against the Tampa Bay Lightning?
I think the Montreal Canadiens need to be really upset with their effort against the St. Louis Blues. And I really hope that they have one of those statement rebound games. We saw it in the past. We've seen it a couple of times this season. It's unfortunate that we keep needing these games. But I think that, again, Kucherov is playing. He's a Habs killer. Brayden Point. I mean, everyone on Tampa is a Habs killer. Andrei Vasilevsky is a Habs killer. Everybody,
Sure.
But I think that this is one where the Canadiens really do have to keep their foot on the gas, and they have to try and capitalize, because Tampa is just simply a better team. We saw, how quickly they rebounded from a rough start, and we saw how we have not been able to count them out for 3 seasons in a row now. We keep saying they should be on the downswing, they should be on the downswing, and they are very markedly not. What I'm interested to see is Demidov perform against Kucherov. I think that's somebody, I feel like we talk a lot about comparisons and things like that, and I feel like Demidov is if Kucherov wasn't a vile human. If you made Kucherov a nice boy, like that's Demidov's future. So I'm interested to see, like, I don't know if they'll be matched against each other or whatever, but I'm interested to see that dynamic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I am too. I think it's a measuring stick game for the Canadiens, right? They've been hurt. Tampa's dealt with some injuries too, but they find themselves right next to one another. I don't think it's a team Montreal considered to be a peer this early in their build. So it'll be interesting to see how they match up and whether or not the 2 games last year were flukes or if Montreal can really skate with this team. All right. Let's head to Pittsburgh for game 2 of the week. 14-7-6. The Pittsburgh Penguins are for 34 points. 4th in the Metro. They are a wild card team. Every team the Canadiens will play this week, as of right now, are a playoff team. So it's a tough week for Montreal. It's what makes last week a little bit more disappointing. The Habs lost all 3 in regulation to Pittsburgh last year, almost a year to the day from their 9-2 loss that finished the season series against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Crosby still doing it, 30 points in 27 games, 18 goals for Sidney Crosby. He's like on pace for almost 50, if it's not 50. Malkin, 29 points in 26 games. The goaltending, Tristan Jarry is a 913, a 254, and with 1 shutout, and Artur Silovs an 898, a 3.0, and 1 shutout. I don't really understand why they're thinking about trading Tristan Jarry, but that's neither here nor there. Power play, 33%, first in the National Hockey League. It's tied with Edmonton for first. So Montreal will get the 2 best power plays in the league this week. Penalty kill, 85%, fourth in the National Hockey League. So special teams, the story for the Pittsburgh Penguins thus far this season. Is there something else in this game that we should be watching for against the Penguins, or is it really just you shut down those top guys and you'll be okay?
I don't know if you'll be okay, because why is Pittsburgh good? Aren't they supposed to be rebuilding? Isn't the narrative that they were supposed to be the worst team in the league and they were supposed to be giving up and start trading assets and things like that? So
not that they should have been, that they wanted to be. That they
right.
were. Every time Pierre LeBrun over the summer was talking about which teams were trying to add, he always threw in there the Penguins are the only team not trying to get better. And here they are. Turns out they didn't need to get better. They already were good.
Yeah. And to be honest, I've looked at some of the numbers and they do seem legitimately good, right? Not like Colorado Avalanche good or anything like that. Let's not get crazy. But they seem legitimately good. So the Montreal Canadiens, like, this is another measuring stick game for the Canadiens. They do have to shut down the top line, but like, my question is really like, are they going to be able to come out with a win? Simply because I just think that they've got guys on there who've been playing since, forever. And those are the guys that are going to be able to beat, the Canadiens could play 99% perfect on defense. That 1% is going to kill them.
Yeah, that 1%, the puck is on Sidney Crosby's stick shortly before it's going to the back of the net, right? Like that's the unfortunate aspect of playing a team like this.
Yes, with goaltenders who, let's be honest, we can't all 100% trust right now. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely on that one. All right, let's move on quickly here. The New York Rangers are next on Saturday night, 15-12-4, 34 points. The first 3 teams Montreal plays this week, all 34 points in the standings. So very balanced schedule if that's what you're looking at. 5th in the Atlantic, also a wild card team. Montreal lost 4-3 back in October. It was their first home loss. Montreal led 2-1 headed into the third period. And within 6 minutes of the third period beginning, they trailed by 2 goals. It was another classic Canadiens meltdown that we've seen too often. Panarin, 32 points in 31 games. Fox is back, 26-27. Shesterkin, 913, 246 and a shutout. Quick, 937, 186 and a shutout. The goaltending is phenomenal in New York this year. Power play 18.8% is 17th. Penalty kill 80.2, 21st. The Rangers, while they beat Montreal in Montreal earlier this season, the Rangers are 3-8-3 on home ice. They are not a very good home ice team. So if the Canadiens are going to get one against the Rangers, you'd think this would be the one. Quickly, what's your key to this one? Because we have one more game we have to break down before we head to break.
I really think just you have to not lose it in the second period and you'll be fine. I think that this is a winnable game. Not easy game, but a winnable game.
Yep. Look, I mean, the way the Canadiens know they're capable of playing, every game should be winnable.
Yeah.
This one going in to play this opponent who suddenly can't play in their own building, this is a game you have to escape with points. All right. It's a rematch of a game where the Canadiens also should have had points. The Edmonton Oilers finish out the season series against the Montreal Canadiens. They're 13-11-5, 31 points, fourth in the Pacific, and a wildcard team currently. Montreal lost back in October 6-5. That was the Garrett Rank game. So that was one that we all got very upset about for good reason about how that game went down. Shouldn't have ended the way that did. McDavid, 42 points in 29 games. Draisaitl, 37 in 29. Bouchard, 27 in 29. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 22 in 20. Power play, 33%. Penalty kill, 80%. That's only 18th in the National Hockey League. What are your thoughts on the Edmonton Oilers and how the Canadiens can rebound from that really awful game that they had last time around? Not an awful effort, but awful game in the result not matching what they should have gotten.
Well, that's exactly it, is that they can't get caught up in score settling because the score is not with the Edmonton Oilers, it's with the officiating. So they have to really just like stick to the simple game that they played against Edmonton. They played a phenomenal game against Edmonton the first time around because they played the basics. And yes, there's a couple of guys who aren't there now because of injuries, but I really think that they need to not get lost in that. They need to do their best to shut down the top line, and then hopefully, something holds up against the second line.
Yeah, look, I think all week the penalty kill is going to be massive. They need to have a great week if the Canadiens are to have a chance. And I think in that game against Edmonton specifically, if you give up a goal, the game is not over. Like, that is a gettable team. 102 goals against. They're one of the worst defensive teams in the National Hockey League, worst goaltending teams in the National Hockey League. That game is gettable. The goals are going to be gettable in that game. Don't get discouraged if you give one up to their really high-flying offense. You're going to have opportunities to get back in that game. They cannot quit.
I know we have to move on. I have a very quick question for you.
Sure.
How many minutes do you think Nick Suzuki plays on average this week?
25. I think. I think he's going to look like defenseman minutes by the end of the week, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Hope he's up for it. All right, we'll leave that there. When we come back, I'll have a different hat on. It's Rumour Roundup, and we will be talking about one Phil Danault potentially making his comeback to Montreal. We'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, the receiver gets hot, a defense tightens, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment, just like you might have this weekend when the Bills played the Cincinnati Bengals. Lots of momentum shifts in that game. Those would have been opportunities for you to jump in and hit different player props as Josh Allen heats up, to bet the next touchdown scores as the Bills are trying to come back in that game. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. The holidays are here, and this year I'm not stressing about what to wear because I'll be wearing my Doers. These are the most comfortable pants I own, and they make me look good too. Doers denim and lifestyle apparel is engineered for movement and versatility. Whether I'm on the go, traveling, lounging at home, going to a nice dinner party, I look and feel great. I've been recommending Doer to all my friends. These are my favorite jeans to wear for any occasion. I love wearing them to work. I love wearing them when I'm just lounging around at home. They're my go-to jeans. Doer invented the original performance denim, and they give us the best of both worlds, combining classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. They're designed to look great and stay comfortable all day long, all year round. So it's time for you to experience the comfort of Doer, and I know you'll love these. Pick up a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift. Find Doer at your local retailers like Neon, Schrader, and MEC, or shop online at doer.ca/LockedOnCanadiens. You'll get 15% off your first order. That's DUER.ca/LockedOnCanadiens for 15% off. Doer.ca/LockedOnCanadiens. All right, we are back. Thank you for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day and for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Canadiens with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedoncanadiens.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. I forgot I have to do a quick wardrobe change. Forgot my hat. My hat was on the other side of the room. That can't happen, Laura. Look, we're back. It's Rumour Roundup. This one came out over the weekend. It was Frank Saravalli posting online that the LA Kings are exchanging calls on Phil Danault. Teams are interested in Phil Danault. He didn't list any teams. But what it comes down to is this. Phil Danault is finding himself on the outside of the Kings center picture thus far this season. He's really struggled to carve out a role for himself now that Andrei Kopitar is still playing, although he's not going to be playing next year. So I find this a little interesting in that regard. But also Quinton Byfield has really carved out a role for himself and made himself an integral part of what the Kings are trying to do. So Phil Danault comes in with 2 years left, $5.5 million AAV, a 10-team no trade clause. This is the kicker that I know a lot of people instantly went to and went, don't trade for this guy. 28 games. He has no goals and 5 assists. His most common line mates are Trevor Moore and Warren Foegele. He is the sixth most utilized forward at 4-on-5 for the Kings, so not being used as a penalty killer. And the penalty kill for the Kings is struggling, 80.7%, 19th in the National Hockey League. He still has it at the faceoff dot, 53.9%. What are your thoughts on potentially going and getting Phil Danault and bringing him back where he ought to be in Montreal?
You're not getting him for scoring. That's the first thing I'm going to say. You don't need that. You have guys who can finish. You just have guys who can't defend and like start the rush and get the puck to them and. So when you get Phillip Danault, like you're getting a lot that's not goals or assists on the score sheet. And personally, for me, I think we saw how badly they played defensively in that second period. We've seen it time and time again. We've also seen how many guys have to now play the penalty kill because there's so many injured people, right? Caden Gooley's not here. Alex Newhook is not here. I think like every time I say the words Alex Newhook, like I feel like a little stab in my heart.
Yeah.
And so for me, like I feel like you're bringing in Phillip Danault for maturity, for positional soundness, for like an ability to shut down the opponent, which is what they desperately need. Like I just feel like this is a no-brainer. And like I promise, like I knew we were going to talk about him today. I had this long like reflection on whether or not it was an emotional pull or whether it was a logical pull. And I still think that he still got enough in the tank. I don't know if he'd ever want to come back here after what happened, but he still got enough in the tank to help buoy the Canadiens. I'm not going to say propel. I'm going to say like help them stay afloat. He's not going to be life-changing, but he still has a speed. Like, you know, I think there's just so many good things about him. Like they don't need him to score. They've got guys who can score goals. It's just the guys don't have the puck because the puck is always in the other end.
Right. I look at it this way. I think reliving the glory days is certainly a part of this, right? The idea of bringing a guy home who we loved having as a Montreal Canadien, who really blossomed, came into his own in this city. I think, there's probably some truth to the fact that he's lost a step just in his game. Time is undefeated. It'd be kind of crazy if he didn't. If he hadn't lost a step, he's not a player that becomes available, right? That's another thing you have to think about this, right? Players are only being traded if the team that they are on is way worse than they thought they would be, which at this point in the season, the standings are so condensed. There are none of those teams. Even the teams that you think are like blowing it up and rebuilding, they're not. Or you're getting a distressed asset, a player who hasn't played very well. Those are who you're getting mid-season. So, I think a lot of people look at opportunities like this and they see a player who's not playing well and they're like, I want nothing to do with that. We talked about reliving the glory days and nostalgia. There is some nostalgia here, but it's not for Danault from his last time around. It's for Christian Dvorak.
Yeah.
Christian Dvorak, last year, his cap hit was 5.1% of the salary cap. This year, Phil Danault's cap hit is 5.4% of the cap. And next year, the last year on Danault's deal, will be 5.2%. He could effectively just be new Christian Dvorak. Win draws, play defensively. Yeah. His face-off 53.9% at the draw. So very, very good. I wonder how much of, the anxiety here is with regards to his cap hit. I understand that, but I think ultimately the Canadiens probably balk at this. This isn't something that they want to do. However, this is a hole that they have in their lineup. And I know people are going, well, he's not going to be the 2C. I never said he was, never thought he was going to be.
No,
I think this is new Dvorak. It is guy who is going to help you. It's guy who is going to help Jake Evans.
Yeah.
Right now, if the Canadiens make the playoffs without adding another center, who is your matchup? I'm sending you out against the other team's best players to shut them down center. It's probably Jake Evans. And right now, you look me in the eye and you tell me he can do that. And that's not to say he won't be able to, but right now his line is struggling. They're not playing well.
Yeah.
So I
This
really have a
relieves
hard
pressure off
time.
of him.
Yes, he needs help. Brendan Gallagher needs help. Those guys need help. If you're going into the playoffs with Joe Veleno as your shutdown fourth line center, I think you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, I agree. And like, are you going to even get to the playoffs? I know we're running out of time. Just one more thing about the cap hit is it comes off the books before it even becomes relevant.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, it's he's got this year and next, and then he's gone. And then, it becomes whatever. Let's do yeehaws here. How are you feeling from a realism standpoint of Phil Danault being on the market? That's the rumor, right? If we're staying true to what this is, not him coming to Montreal, but him being on the market.
Oh, that's a 5 out of 5 yeehaws.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense given where the Kings are at. What about the entertainment factor of a Phil Danault trade?
95.
Yeah, I agree. I love this player. I'll always see him in the post-game scrums with pizza, just cheersing with a piece of pizza after a big playoff win. Like it's a guy you want.
Yeah, I will always see him being worn as a coat by the opponent's like biggest stars. Like that's what that's what I see Phil Danault as. That's what I want. That's what I want back.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that playoff run, right? He was glued to the Matthews line, shut them down. He was glued to the Ehlers line, shut them down. He was glued to whoever Vegas had, shut them down. Like he did everything he needed to. So I ultimately think the cap hit is what's prohibitive here, but I think Montreal ought to at least entertain the conversation and see what they can get done. All right, we'll leave that there. When we come back, let's talk about another center, potentially one that can be a short-term second line center in Brayden Schenn. We'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994, and with 48 teams for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Game Time app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Game Time, you can track prices drop in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands and makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to pull up the app. The layout is going to make it simple to scroll through the matchups and compare seats. You're going to pick a game, you're going to tap a section, and you're going to have tickets locked within minutes. No confusion, no hunting for fine print. The Seat View feature is great. It's a game changer. You see literally what the pitch will look like from your exact seat before you buy. And my favorite, the prices include fees up front. There's no last second surprises at checkout. You know what you're going to be buying. Take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go Game Time. All right, we're back. Let's talk about Brayden Schenn, who just walked into what we hope might be his future home in Montreal and torched the Montreal Canadiens. Brayden Schenn this season for the St. Louis Blues in 30 games, 6 goals, 7 assists, 13 points. It's kind of funny to think that a lot of those points were against the Montreal Canadiens. Look, he's a left shot center, 34 years old, 6'1". What is it about this player that you still find that could help the Montreal Canadiens?
He's most likely to be available for one, and he still has enough in the tank to be effective for another. Like, I think that personally, like, he's obviously not the ideal solution, but he seems a lot more realistic than a lot of other players that we've wanted or we've talked about. I think that I don't know that the St. Louis Blues will ever want to trade with the Montreal Canadiens again. I don't know if that's something that they're going to be willing to do. But what I saw, and again, this is not just one game, because we have talked about Brayden Schenn before. We have talked about how there's a potential that he might be on the market. We've talked about this like in the past. We talked about it last year as like an option, right? Future 2C or not 2C, or a stopgap 2C or not 2C. And I think like the biggest difference for me is that he is still effective, and he is still effective at generating offense. And I think that to me is the biggest thing. And I feel like, we went from Philippe Danault, who I think is a reliable shutdown center, to Brayden Schenn, who I think is just like your run of the mill center, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
he's not going to give you penalty kill minutes,
no,
which that's a different problem for you. So ideally, the Canadians get a second line center who can do all of these things, and you get
yeah,
one player who does everything. You essentially have Nick Suzuki too. Like
yes.
that would be if they could clone Nick Suzuki, it's what they would love to do.
The Nick
They cannot.
Suzuki's of the world grow on trees, as you know.
Right, exactly. It's a difficult player to replicate. It's why
Yeah.
when you have one, you don't. It's why when you have one, you don't want to get rid of them, which is why none of them are available.
Yes.
Your best bet is to draft and develop these players or trade for them as prospects, and then you still have to develop them. Like it's difficult for teams to just go find another Nick Suzuki. I like his faceoff numbers, 55.9%. Could he play with a guy like a Demidov? Would he slide into that second line center role in that sense? Because I think that line is starting to cook. I've really liked Texier on the wing. And then does that give you the option of using Oliver Kapanen on I've joked about it. Like him as your third line center is hilarious. Like he could be a really effective third line center.
Well,
But do you
that's
think
it.
that makes sense?
I think that improves your overall forward group. I think
Yeah.
it gives you like I do get what you're saying about the chemistry that he's building with Demidov, but Demidov can build chemistry with anyone, right? And I think that's really, really important. And so I feel like you kind of shift a little bit more responsibility onto Demidov initially, but then, I think Brayden Schenn becomes the I don't want to say driver because again, Demidov is such a focal point, but I think like it gets to a point where I personally feel that like Demidov would be racking up assists and Brayden Schenn would be the one getting the goals.
Yeah. And look, I mean, like at 5-on-5, he's not a draw. He's not a bad player. He 51.3% of the expected goals at 5-on-5. There's a legit chance that he could step in and be an impact player. Again, like I wonder about the cost. And the reason I wonder about the cost is less so about where the Blues are headed and more so about who's going to be leading the Blues. Doug Armstrong is stepping aside and is handing the reins to Alex Steen after this season, which we're old. Alex Steen is about to be a general manager. It's kind of crazy to think about. I still haven't gotten used to Danielle Briere being the general manager in Philadelphia.
Or
I think
Darsh.
Matthew Darsh. I saw Matthew Darsh score a goal in person. I was at a game in New Jersey where he scored a goal, and it's weird that he's now a general manager. I think he doesn't. I don't think Doug Armstrong wants to leave the Blues in a bad place. That's not to say that he won't set them up for a rebuild. He just wants to do it the right way, which means if you're trading a guy like Brayden Schenn, who I don't have it in front of me, but I imagine he has trade protection. If you're trading a guy like him, you're doing right by the Blues, not by the player. And you're getting every ounce you can out of that player. And that's where I get worried because that's not a guy I want to trade the farm for. It's a guy that you get as a nice piece if you're really close and he could put you over the edge. But like I have a really hard time. And it's why like Danault, I think, is a fun option because I don't think he's going to be a guy that you have to sell the farm to get. Right.
No.
For all of the reasons that people say don't trade for him, that's why he would be cheap.
Yeah.
Schenn is different. I think he has a bit more of a pedigree. He's going to come with a legitimate price tag.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree with you there. I feel like, it was an option worth talking about. And as we know, the Montreal Canadiens have done a lot of homework. They've written a term paper on all the centers in the league. So we know that they know everything there is to know about all the centers, whether they're available or not. And it remains to be seen what happens.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's hit our trivia and head out of here for the day. All right, yesterday's question. We're on day 2 of Paul Byron trivia. Paul Byron's first NHL goal came on January 25th against the Ottawa Senators. This other former Montreal Canadien also scored in this game. Laura, who also once wore the Habs jersey and scored in the same game Paul Byron scored his first NHL goal.
It was Sergei Gonchar.
It was Sergei Gonchar. He was playing for the then Ottawa Senators. Very, very funny. Like Gonchar, I remember playing for a lot of places. Ottawa and Montreal are like the ones I don't remember. Like those are the ones where I'm like, those were weird moments that probably shouldn't have happened.
I associate him most with Pittsburgh.
Of course. Yeah. Pittsburgh. And for me, funny enough, Dallas. I don't know why Dallas is the other one where I'm like, oh, yeah, Sergei Gonchar played there.
He also played in Washington, right? Or is that
Yep.
someone
He
else?
was a
Yeah,
cap.
okay.
Yep. Yep. Look at us, just remembering where dudes played. All right. The correct answers came to us from our buddy Scott and Superrain. Today's question, with Montreal playing against the Tampa Bay Lightning tonight, Marty St. Louis' first goal against the Montreal Canadiens came in Montreal on December 17th, 2001. This current NHL head coach assisted on that goal. Which current NHL head coach assisted on Marty St. Louis' first goal against the Montreal Canadiens? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Let us know any way you know how, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. That is going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe and follow our show. We're everywhere, so you get all the latest episodes, updates, and everything that we have coming out for us. Did Locked On Canadiens make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our National Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform, and we'll drop you a code. I want to repeat that part. Don't tag Laura or myself or at Locked On Canadiens. Tag the National Locked On Podcast Network account on any social media platform, and they'll hook you up with a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club and get your favorite show ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel where we'll be hanging out. For those of you on video, we will send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen, NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. Go check them out. It's a lot of fun. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you guys tomorrow.